The crash, the correction, the capitulation is on. Bitcoin down 7.6%, and several altcoins also down. However, something very strange is happening on this correction. Now, if you look around at the prices on your altcoins, have a look at which ones are holding up, which ones are putting in major gains today, which ones are putting in higher lows while Bitcoin is down and wiping out some of the masses. If you've ever wanted a time machine, this is one of those perfect opportunities. Not only a time machine for entry opportunities, but a time machine to understand what previous cycles were like. I'm talking about 2020. Let's have a look at how this is playing out, what I think is coming next based on my analysis with the data that I'm using here, and of course the technical analysis. As you found your home of macro cycle analysis with me, Jason Pizzino, on the channel here covering Bitcoin, cryptos, the stock markets, and the real estate cycle. Make sure you smash up the like button today. Huge thanks to last week's 3.7K. Let's go for 3,500 today. And links in the video description. I'll cover those later on. I reckon here is a perfect place to begin for the crypto crash, the capitulation. The stock market is never obvious. It is designed to fool most of the people, most of the time. Jesse Livermore. Now, this epic quote is from Jesse Livermore, and there is a book on Jesse Livermore's life written by Edward Lefevre, but we believe that that is Jesse Livermore under a different name. If you've never read it, absolutely incredible book for your crypto and Bitcoin trading. And of course, if you're in the stock market or any market, it gives you an idea around what people are thinking and doing at particular times, crashes, peaks, how he traded the market, one of the best traders of all time as well. So this is going to be a big quote for today's video. Now, let's have a look at the macro markets here, basically the traditional markets, looking at the macro cycle on them, starting with the stock markets, as we've seen a couple of days down. And then, of course, we'll look at some of the headlines and understand what's going on in the markets and how we can make use of this, what I'm thinking is a great opportunity here. So just as an update over the last couple of days, S&P 500, well, Friday was a tiny red day, and yesterday also another red day here, down 1.39% from the all-time high, and we do the same dance again. The dance is low to high on the 50%, see where the market comes in to correct, and if it's above 50% levels on the major time frame, strong. It gets below them and below previous support levels, it's weak. But for now, it's very close to that all-time high, and down to the 50% level, you've got about a 3.5% move to that particular price there. And then, of course, you've got the previous tops, the previous swing bottoms, lots of areas for potential support to come in for the market. So overall, we're still in that macro uptrend. There hasn't been any macro breakdowns on the stock market. And the same deal for the NASDAQ, although it has had a bigger move to the downside because, well, we're seeing some of those tech stocks take a bigger hit after booming, absolutely booming. So for the NASDAQ, plenty of room to move to the downside to correct and digest the move to the upside. First points of contact would be your short-term 50% level coming in at around 19,300. So until these levels are broken, everything is looking relatively on track. Probably closing some gaps that you can see here that have come in over the last couple of weeks, possibly taking time to digest the move to the upside from what we've seen with the stocks like Apple, absolutely booming as they talked about AI a couple of weeks ago, big boom up, correcting that move out of the breakout of the all-time high, because that was the previous old all-time highs, whoops, right through there. And now we've got a new all-time high above here. And of course, Nvidia, probably the biggest loser over the last few days. Few days down, we had that new all-time high on Thursday, and now we've got the outside bar down. What do? Let's throw a 50% from the low to the current high, and we have a price of around $108. That also lines up with another swing bottom here before the breakout that gapped up as well. Now, even to the downside, further to the downside, you still got resistance, which could potentially become support at about $95. So plenty of room to move to the downside to correct or to consolidate this massive upside move. You've got a lot of late entrants, a lot of late buyers. We need to wipe those out, de-risk the market, de-leverage it, and then start the journey again if it holds those prices. So that's why we got plenty of support to the downside. And the same thing seems to be happening with cryptocurrencies and with Bitcoin as well. Now, Bitcoin and crypto. So looked at the traditional markets, everything is still on track. People might be freaking out that Nvidia had dropped a few days here. It's down 15%. Well, yeah, I mean, it's up how many thousands of a percent? It's only normal, right? So 17th of March, 3 months and 1 week ago, we saw the top signal, significant top signal come in, which was 3 days down, suggesting that the correction was going to be longer than most were ready to believe or that most were prepared for. That has happened, and we are getting very close now to that 4 months. So this is point number 4 here. The 3-day down signal shows a median time frame in months, roughly 4 to 6 months. We're a few weeks away from that 4-month period, and then 6 months would bring us out into roughly around September. So we got that on the chart. Looks very, very interesting as well. The 3-day down signal, that was the shortest time frames. We covered those. It didn't happen in that very short period. It definitely moved towards this time frame here. And the signal does not suggest a deeper correction than current norm. So it doesn't mean that it has to be, but it could be. So we've seen around a 23% correction. The main thing with this signal that I focus on is the time frames here. So it doesn't necessarily need to tell us how much the correction will be, but the time frame I think is the most important, because that's essentially the problem with traders and investors. They get fearful at certain times, they get bored of the markets, and they walk away from them. And now would, in my opinion, my humble opinion, would not be a time to be walking away from the market, either selling up or forgetting about it and not looking for opportunities for this next and what I think is the final leg in the cycles. And the final leg can last a fair bit of time, right? So we're not saying that's the end. It's you got a few months up and it's over. I think there could be a fair bit of time after this. So this was part of our analysis that led to this last correction, this last couple of weeks to the downside on the channel, which is why I suggest you like. Thanks again. And subscribe down here. You'll see the subscribe button. Click that. 3 out of 10 of you still aren't subscribed, so make sure you do that, because these are all update videos on how the analysis comes together day over day, week over week, and I can't possibly fit all of the analysis into one video, but you can sure keep up to date with it here. This particular one was looking at weeks, consecutive weeks in a swing. And this is a Gann swing indicator, which you can find a link to in the video description. 7-day free trial there to check out how this works and how you can use it for your trading and investing, long-term or short-term. I use it for a lot of my longer-term positions on BTC and ETH to identify either price target levels or basically market breakdown levels on the longer-term time frame. But a lot of our traders use it short-term as well on 4-hour charts, dailies, 1 hours, whatever they choose. Anyway, onto this particular post here. The consecutive weeks up suggested that we were potentially running into some sort of resistance in time. And of course, there was a triple top there as well in price. And so in the time, we were looking for a correction here. That was at that time as the market came up to test that level. And then we got the 5 weeks, which then meant typically you'll see some sort of correction. But the good news is that you would normally see the price go higher after this correction. And so you've got the move down here, 5 weeks to the upside. You've got another 5 weeks to the upside. You've got your 8 weeks to the upside, a fake out here with the ETF top, then a correction. It took several more weeks until you got that big move to the upside. Again, 7 weeks in a row, you got a correction. This time was about 5 weeks. So what I look at here is 5 weeks or more. What is the market going to do from this point? Because it is typically overextended in time. Yeah, it can go further. It can do 7 weeks. It can do 8 weeks. Some cases it can do 10 weeks. But when you get to that 5 week mark, it starts to show it can show some signs that it wants to at least take a rest. And when it does show that, you're probably going to see that rest or that correction come about. That's what we got this time round. It wasn't different to other times. Keep a lookout next time we get that, and it also can happen to the downside. If you're starting to see multiple weeks to the downside, maybe you start to see a bounce after those 5 or more weeks. So we're well within that now. BTC has had a push to the downside, and the market has closed higher volume, so good signs there. It has closed above the previous higher swing low for Bitcoin, and that price was 60,150 on Coinbase. We got a close at 60,254, so $100 higher than that low after washing out some more of those liquidations. As we see here, some of the highest longs liquidated that we've seen, well, pretty much in the last 6 or so months, right up here at about 305 million. We are also looking at the ETF flows. If you guys remember that from the other day, we had the top come in as the most amount of ETFs came into the market recently in June. And we also had that Malo when the most amount of ETFs left the market. And so over the next few days, we'll get this data in to show us the ETF flows. Maybe it's going to give us some sort of signal again to suggest that what we're seeing at the moment or over the next couple of days could be a final low, but I can't make that call yet because we don't have that data on the ETF. What this has shown in the past is that every time people got hyped up for peaks and a lot of people bought, that showed a top in the market, peak inflows right around here. And look what's happened from that point. Washed out the normies, the noobs buying their ETFs and basically resetting the market. Same deal happened at the low. They were all selling into that low. The biggest outflow day we've seen, bam, market boomed from that point. Well, went up from 56K to $71,500. I think it's a pretty good signal. You let me know in the comment section. This is basically a contrarian indicator to what the market is doing at the time. Every time there's a ton of inflows, some of the biggest days, the biggest volume, you get some sort of correction, some sort of peak, and then correction or pause in the market. Same deal at that low. We saw the biggest outflow day and the market moved up from that point. So I'm very, very interested to see what happens over the next few days, as I look at it as a contrarian indicator, whereas the masses love to see these ETF inflows and they tell us that there's more and more people buying. The market has to go up. I don't see that in the data. I hear it from them, and from them, the thems are usually wrong. The they, thems, z's and zers. So on to the news. Mt. Gox to start distributing $9 billion in Bitcoin to creditors in July after a decade-long wait. Yep, it's been an absolutely mammoth time to wait to get these the Bitcoin to these traders or investors. This broke down in 2014. It is now 2024. And they're saying it's slated to commence at the start of July. Every article I've read suggests that there's going to be a longer process of getting the Bitcoin out to the rightful owners of the BTC. I don't look at this as they give everything to everyone and everyone's going to dump it on that first day. You might be different. I just can't see that happening. And this news has been out forever. For 10 years, it has come up often, very, very often. I was going to say every month, but there's usually something about it every few times a year at least for the last 10 years. And so this particular dump on this news, if that in fact is what it is, personally, I do not see it as the end of Bitcoin and the end of this cycle. And we got a left translated top and it's game over. This news is old news. It's eventually going to happen. They're eventually going to distribute the funds here. And yeah, 9 billion, that's not a small amount. Bitcoin can handle it, but it's not going to destroy the market long term. So yeah, I'm not concerned with this. And I do like to see these sort of significant days on significant news days as well, because you got the worst news possible coming out and prices showing you some lows. But overall, I see a bit of a divergence happening here. And so far, the lows are still higher than the May low. And of course, they're much higher than the ETF low and the pause before we got into that final top low as well, and at around $51,000. And so overall, even if this is to come back down, if it's still got higher lows throughout this cycle, and the major support levels would be back at the major 50% and the monthly swing tops. We've talked about that, 44,500. Some people get this wrong. I'm not saying it goes there. That is the major support level. And you've got 48, 49,000. So those two levels there would be the flip. If it broke down from that, screw it. I was wrong. The whole game is wrong. It's bearish. But as long as it holds above those levels, they are your major flipping points for the cycle. Then all you've got is a dip in an overall uptrend. There's more news with Australia. It's no big thing for the rest of the world, but now Australia has a Bitcoin ETF, starts trading on our Australian stock exchange, but that's no big deal. I mean, there's all of $4 million in assets. Guess what? We got a 30 on the crypto fear and greed index. Finally, I don't think this thing is broken after all. A nice big drop from 51 down to 30. This, in my own analysis, has finally reset the market. Finally got a reset on the market sentiment. And this is a fantastic sign for the next stage. If you have ever wanted to know what the second half of 2020 felt and looked like, this is probably the closest that you will see. Look around on your X feeds, Twitter, look around on YouTube, look around at any of those platforms that you're watching. I think what I see anyway, everyone is either freaking out or they're at each other's throats. I see it in the comment section. I see it in the comments here on X as well. All of the jargon that people are saying about you're wrong, you're right. It's that fight between the bulls and the bears, which typically happens at very extreme points. So it's either around this period here at the $58,000 that we just dropped to on BTC, or over the coming days if it is to push a little bit further down. You typically see that the most extreme emotions, and that comes out in what people write and say at these times. So again, to me, it's just another signal that we aren't at a point of the market collapsing and we're at some sort of dip in a macro move to the upside. Again, I'm not here to try and buy the exact lows. I like to buy ranges, whether that range stops here, here, or here. It doesn't matter to me as long as I'm in that range, because I see the upside being much, much greater than fighting over a few percent in this particular zone. Buy the zones, sell the zones, make the profit through the middle, and you will be absolutely delighted with your outcomes there. The other piece is, for market sentiment, is the Google Trends. So the Bitcoin search term just ticked up. You can see here, it came up from 18 to 21. Good signs that there is still interest in the search term. And we have seen some of these lows come into play in previous market bottoms, September, October, before the big breakout. You got search volume here at 16, 15, 17, 16, 18, and then you started to get that breakout. And so we got the lows here, 19, 22, 20, 18, and now 21. So it's a good sign here that for now it looks like slightly higher lows, but you definitely want to see some of these moves start to tick up over the coming months. And I'll show you that on the chart in just a moment. Interest over time, we saw these huge lows here. So as I was saying in this tweet, if you want to know what 2020 felt like, very similar. Look at these peaks and then the drop off in the sentiment, people not talking about Bitcoin and crypto. Second half of 2020, September, October, similar sort of thing here. Yes, the numbers are lower because there's less people talking about Bitcoin and crypto back then, but the same sort of pattern. Lower highs, and then you start to get a little bit more interest come in and higher highs begin to form, and then the market breaks out. But that happens over the course of a couple of months. You got August, September, October, and then you break out into November, December, and of course the rest is history from that point. Now, we also have forward returns to have a look at for BTC on the monthly, the quarterly, the 6 monthly, and the annually. But I'm going to leave that to another video this week. So make sure you do hit the subscribe button, like the content. Let me know in the comment section what you're finding most valuable, and I'll continue to look at that for you guys as well. But this is just a collaboration of all the analysis that I go through on a daily basis to help with my macro view, not get freaked out by the markets as the majority do, looking at headlines, and then know how to position myself in the market for that time of the cycle. So I'm going to cover the forward returns in a video this week. So let's carry on with the altcoins now. So that's the tweet there. Higher lows look to be forming. This was in April. That was after that bottom on the 13th of April, 2024. Here is your total cryptocurrency market cap and a couple of indicators that we have also been watching on the channel. ATR, average true range. You can see the range of the bars dropping off, which I have termed it being a stealth move. Basically, less interest, higher lows are forming, and then you eventually see some sort of breakout to the upside over the coming months. And my time frame, as I pointed out many times, 4 to 6 months from that peak, and the peak was March, so you got to count your days forward from there. You can see how the investment and the trading plan comes together as you got your timing and your prices and your levels, and you can start to make educated guesses or forecasts on the market while everyone else is just looking at crap day to day, not understanding how it all pieces together. That's something that we do in great detail, regular basis, weekly here with our members at TIA Premium. So if you want to join us on that for your own trading investing in this coming final leg of the cycle, link in the top of the video description there. Get on board. With the total cryptocurrency market cap, these stealth moves typically turn into big moves, big pushes to the upside, because you can only suppress a market for so long. And we're still in this suppression phase here. I've got some support and resistance lines of the ranges of the bar, in this case, the daily bar and the total cryptocurrency market cap. It's somewhere around those lows according to these particular signals. I'm not trying to, again, buy the exact low, just somewhere around the lows. 50% of the range comes in at 550 billion. And then to these lows of the higher low breakout, that's at around 450, which would be about a 43% correction from the top. So all well within reasonable levels of any sort of correction of these moves. I'm not saying it has to get there, but I'm suggesting that this is a safer entry point for the markets. And it's still just, in some cases, above that April 13th low or at that April 13th low. So a nice flush of that and a close above would be great. We don't get it. It's still going to be an equal or higher low on many charts. And some of those charts for the stronger altcoins, here's your ETH. Higher low at the moment on today's slightly higher volume than previously, and still higher than the 13th. That's a stronger look at altcoins that are potentially positioning themselves for that next move to the upside. I'm rating things off that particular low and the ETF correction low as well. So they're still above those levels. In this case, ETH, that's against the US dollar. Against BTC, it had a move up yesterday. So as I said in the intro, some crazy stuff was happening with the altcoins and the days just reset, but several altcoins were moving up against BTC when BTC was going down to hold their dollar values or increase their dollar values in this correction of BTC. ETH was one of those, well, at least against its BTC value. It went up 2.72% and fell against its USD value by 2%. So it needed to do a couple more percent, which I'll show you in just a moment on some of these other altcoins. So not a weak looking chart at the moment, holding above 50%, putting in higher lows, trying to come back to this level at 0.058 of a BTC. And you would expect that if it was going to be weak, it should show some weakness when Bitcoin was also showing some weakness, but it didn't. Solana, similar sort of thing here. Sol versus US dollar. It also went up today, 2.88%. Potential triple bottom here. You got the double and still putting in higher lows after the 13th of April. So that was this particular area here when we had that big flush out and the markets tried to climb back from that point. So I'm watching those lows. It's roughly at a 42% correction from its peak at $210. And from the top, in terms of time, it's at 99 days under the low. So we're waiting to get out to about July through to September for that breakout period. So keep that out there just to give us a time frame. Now, in terms of entries, how do you use this in your own trading? You either get in at the bottoms and you pay less because the lows are at $120 for more risk and potentially a higher reward, or you wait for the market to give you confirmation that it's getting stronger and you pay a premium. So you buy higher at 140, but you've got more signs of confirmation that that was the low and that you're going to see higher prices rather than another breakdown. So you might see a resistance here and break down and you just bought here and you thought, crap, why did I do that? So you either buy here knowing that you could see lower prices, or you wait for confirmation above key turning points. I use the Gann swing indicator and the 50% levels and longer term timeframes like the weekly chart here. So you got that level. You can wait again for more confirmation, roughly above $155, because that's the next 50% level and it's above some previous tops here at about 158. So you could call it 160. I'm not going to buy until I see 160 and closes above that, because that gives me confirmation that the low is in or more confirmation that the low is in, and that I've got less chance of losing money to the downside and more chance to the upside. However, you've just paid a roughly $40 per SOL premium for that confirmation. That's how the markets work there. So SOL looks okay there. Let's have a look at it against BTC. Look at that. Big green day off the lows there. And you got a higher low forming. So take it for what you will. Still looking relatively okay at this stage. It's early days, but that's what we got to work with right now. FET, our AI tokens here, also boomed today. 22%, close above the 50% level against its BTC value after a pretty severe decline over the May and first half of June. So we've seen a punch back now, push to the upside. Does it last? Obviously, only the market knows, but so far these signs are better than your crappy, weak altcoins. So you can see it on a chart. This would be one of your crappy or weak altcoins. It has lower prices here over the entire period. It wasn't even able to push to new highs. DOT also, lows. You got a big day up there, a big day up, but you keep getting these lower lows. So it is eventually going to move higher, but probably less than the newer tokens. And why not? Let's throw in XRP here. It's starting to trend a little bit higher, and it will give those XRP holders some love, but it's not going to be as much love as the majority of other altcoins, and it's not going to make them rich. I would guarantee that based on all of these charts, it will get sold off at some point after a little bit of a move up, brings in all that hope, and then those insiders will just dump on them yet again because their token has gone nowhere. 47 cents, it's gone absolutely nowhere for a very, very long time. Eventually, they'll get a little bit of love, and then they'll get shat on again. The final one here is Pendle. Bounced off 50%. Look at that, dead on the 50%. Big push higher, closed above the swing top at the moment. It's pretty decent volume, and it's still sitting close to those previous old all-time highs against BTC value in this period of the market, which seems very uncertain and very fearful. So look out for your stronger altcoins that are doing things when the rest of the market is extremely fearful. And I think, based on the analysis, based on what I've seen in the past, they'll probably do better than some other crappy stuff that is not doing so well in these times. Position yourself wisely. Don't screw up this period of the markets. I'll see you back here very soon on the channel, so make sure you are subscribed, like the content, and if you want to get our free report coming out today, link is in the top of the video description. Thanks again, guys. See you at the next one. Take care and peace out.